Hello everyone and welcome to an exquisite game that was played in round 4 of the Croatian Grand Chess Tour. The rapid section, Nodirbek Abdusattorov takes on Gukesh Domaraju, and it is, well, I'm not going to say a miniature because you guys get offended when I say 27 moves is a miniature in modern chess, but yeah, I think in 2025, anything below 30 moves, especially at the top level, can be considered a miniature. But okay, we're not going to quarrel over that. Let's just enjoy the game. It's a very, very nice line of the Nimzo-Indian that we all enjoy to see and sometimes even play. So let's dive straight into it. Both of them started with a loss on the first day, but then Gukesh got 2 wins and Nodirbek got 2 draws. He was even lost against Radić in round 3, but he managed to hold it. So let's see how he does against world classical champion Gukesh Domaraju in round 4. We have pawn to d4 by Nodirbek, knight to f6, pawn to c4, e6, and knight to c3. We have bishop to b4, the Nimzo-Indian defense is on the board, and queen to c2. The so-called classical variation, and if you challenge the bishop with a3, you can always capture with the queen so you don't have to ruin your pawn structure. We have pawn to d5, a3, bishop captures, queen captures, and now castles kingside. Knight to e4, still the more popular reply, but castles kingside, I think second most popular. We have knight f3, knight b to d7, and bishop to g5. Again, classical stuff, the Noah variation, and usually is met exclusively with h6. But Gukesh plays pawn to b6, and there aren't a lot of games in the database with this exact same setup. For example, after a trade in the center, captures, and e3. Already there's a game between Jerguš Pehac and Vladimir Fedoseev from the FIDE World Cup 2023 that ended in a draw within the next few moves. h6 was played, and then maybe 3 more moves, and they drew the game. But here Gukesh plays pawn to c5, and he mixes it up a little bit, and it is now as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So what is the idea? Well, the idea is that he is well within his preparation. He's 25:48 on the clock, so he definitely knows what he's doing. Let's see if Nodirbek knows this. We have bishop to b5. Okay, still less than a minute. I would say he maybe he didn't prepare for this game, but he definitely is familiar. And the problem is it's not that simple to continue for black. For example, to give you a line that seems natural, let's say you play rook e8. All of a sudden, d captures on c5, and the knight is pinned. So let's say captures, you're going to capture on f6, and after queen captures, okay, you can trade queens, doesn't really matter, the knight cannot capture. You're going to play g captures, and now rook, or rather even castles, even better, and there's no way to save the d pawn. So you're going to lose the pawn, you have messed up the black king's pawn structure, and you're well on your way on winning the game. You cannot advance it, the d4 square is covered, you cannot move the knight to defend it via b6, so there's nothing really. You cannot play bishop b7 as the knight would hang. There are definitely subtle poisons in the position. So Gukesh finds the best reply. h6, we have bishop to h4, and now a move that might surprise you. He played pawn to a5, but it's not a mistake. For example, you could always play like g5 and put a knight on e4 as the queen is on c3, which is what everyone plays, including your uncle. But you have to be an incredibly strong player to do what Gukesh has done. He played pawn to a5, which seems like he blundered a pawn. But let's try and take that pawn, just for fun. So you've played d captures on c5, b captures, and now you play bishop captures on d7. Okay, you can't capture with the knight to defend the pawn because the queen would hang. So you will capture with the bishop, and now you grab a pawn. Queen captures on c5. Okay, you might think, okay, we'll grab the pawn, let's castle kingside next, and then we're just up a pawn. Problem is, rook to c8 is coming, and then the rook might come to c2. Okay, you play something. Let's say you play queen to a7. Bishop comes to b5, and now you're not castling. But you say, no problem, let's kick away the bishop, a4. All of a sudden, rook c7 attacks the queen. The queen goes, let's say, to d4, and now you just get your bishop to a6, where it's nicely placed, can be attacked, and you are keeping that king on e1. And okay, you could capture on f6, so black obviously doesn't want to trade queens. Black just sacrificed the pawn, so you're going to mess up your pawn structure, but you have the white king on e1. Definitely a nice position if the rook comes to c2. A lot of things can go wrong for white. It's actually perfectly fine to play, but maybe don't do it. So after a5, bishop to c6 by Nodirbek. He doesn't grab the pawn. We have rook to a7, and now he captures it. D captures on c5. We have b captures, and bishop captures on d7. But now if you go for bishop captures on d7, it's a little bit different. Now queen captures on c5 comes with tempo. So if you play rook to c7, now bishop captures on f6. And okay, g captures, and you move queen captures on d5. You capture another pawn. And you definitely don't have compensation nor any sort of attack. You don't have bishop to b5 as white happily trades queens. And that's all there is to it. So after bishop captures on d7, rook captures was played. And now queen captures on c5, which is maybe, you know, it's playable, but it's more like wishful thinking. You should first trade on f6. Captures, trade queens, and then go something like rook c1. You put pressure on the pawn, and if something like c4, pretty much the only way to defend the pawn properly, you get the knight to d4. It's a nice dark square. Your opponent has a light square bishop, so the knight can never be dislodged from d4 unless you want it. And okay, I mean, you have a very nice game. But in the game after rook captures, queen captures on c5 was played right away. And now let's see what happens. Gukesh immediately goes bishop to a6. So the king is staying on e1 for the foreseeable future. We have queen to d4, now preparing to trade on f6, and pawn to g5. Gukesh says, nope, not happening. Bishop g3 and knight to e4. And I don't care how many pawns you have, but if this bishop is on a6 and the knight guarding d2, hitting f2, just doesn't seem like it's worth it. We have rook to c1, queen to a8. Okay, we have queen to d1. And to try and understand queen to d1, you first need to know what is the best move in the position. Now, I'm not going to even show you what the best move is because I can't make sense of it. The engine wants king d1, and whatever that is, we're not discussing that sorcery, but we could show a line that makes sense. Let's say knight e5. Okay, you're attacking the rook, but now there's a rook c8. You don't care about knight captures on d7. And now look at this. Rook captures on c8, queen captures on c8, knight captures on d7, but now you go queen to c1 with check. And now after queen to d1 blocking, you play queen captures on b2. And look at this. There's not much you can do against queen to c3 check. It's gonna be checkmate once the queen moves and you capture on d2. So only move is knight to f6 check. You have to give back a piece, and after knight captures, play something like queen to d2. And yes, you're up the exchange, but only black can win this. There's not a lot you can do. You can give a check. The white queen can block. You're gonna pick up the a3 pawn. Then the a pawn becomes a pass pawn, and that rook is never coming into the game. So it would be either black wins this, or maybe white miraculously holds. But Nodirbek played queen to d1, and he's now lost. But Gukesh misses it. You guys will not, because you guys are amazing players, so have at it. What did Gukesh miss here? He missed pawn to d4. You just and the pawn to d4 is probably the first move that comes to mind, but if you don't see the second move, you cannot play pawn to d4, and the second move is not easy to find because it's a silent move. Knight captures on d4, and now look at this. The only move that wins, rook e8. Beautiful. And now whatever white plays just gets completely overwhelmed. Is there a move that even comes to mind? Let's say rook c2. Okay. We defend the second rank. Maybe we can somehow, if the knight moves, let's say we get our king all the way to b1. I'm just going to show you. Let's say you even allow that. You play knight captures on g3. Captures, now queen captures on g2. You cannot go anywhere. g1, f1 is covered by the bishop, so you can move the rook somewhere. But now look at this. Queen g1, king d2, queen captures on f2 check, king to c1. You're going to capture on e3 with check as well, king to b1, and now you go bishop d3. And okay, is there anything we can do? The knight here is hanging. You're going to play knight to b3. Now comes rook to c8. You threaten again to capture on c2, and that's it. There is no defense here. If knight to a1 trying to defend, you just go for bishop captures on c2 with check, and now you win the white queen regardless of what white plays. So incredibly difficult move to perform. If you do not see rook to e8, I imagine you guys found both, as you guys are amazing. But Gukesh played rook to c8. he now allows Nodirbek to get back into the game, but that's easier said than done. Nodirbek now goes knight d4, obviously realizing that d4 could be a huge issue. Knight to c5, eyeing that d3 square, as both the knight and bishop are covering it, and rook to c2. At least the rook will not be forked, and now pawn to a4. Not going for knight d3 check right away. Gukesh first creates an outpost on b3, and now king to d2. The problem is, if you play something like h4, then you hold, but it's so unrealistic to allow a move like knight to d3. For example, check, you go here, let's say rook captures, queen captures, and all of a sudden white can play. It's still very difficult to play over the board and when the time is ticking, but that is the only way to do it. Nodirbek went king to d2 right away, and now Gukesh throws a rook b7. And the problem with hiding the king on c1 now is that if you play it now, all of a sudden bishop to d3, not a lot of good squares for that rook. And if you try to just give up the exchange, let's say you play king to b1, rook b3. And now you might be thinking, okay, what is this? King a1. Now look at this. Bishop captures on c2. King captures and rook captures on a3 check. And that's it. You resign. B captures, knight b3 check. We'll pick up the queen. And that's it. So after rook to b7, queen to c1, a nice attempt by Nodirbek, now pinning the knight as rook captures on c8 could be an issue, but bishop to c4, beautifully played. The absolute strongest move. Now the queen rook battery isn't all that impressive anymore. Pawn to f3, not a lot, but okay, you take away the e4 square from the knight. Queen to a5 with check. We have king to d1 and knight to b3, and there are no more moves for Nodirbek. The only square for the queen is queen to b1, which will be met with a simple knight captures on d4, and once you capture, let's say bishop to d3, and that's it. Sorry, not bishop to d3, bishop to b3. I was spinning the queen instead of the king, but now there's nothing you can do. There's no way to even get another defender to the rook. So Nodirbek tried one last attempt, bishop to e1, to counter with a queen attack of his own, but Gukesh just moved the queen to a6, and he was in this position on move 27 that Nodirbek Abdusattorov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So Nodirbek not having the best time in Zagreb, a loss, 2 draws, and then a loss, whereas Gukesh started off with a loss against Duda, but then now 3 victories back-to-back. We'll see what happens in the next one, because we know who he is facing in Game 6. It is, of course, Magnus Carlsen, and he will be, hungry for vengeance, I imagine, for the last game they played, where Magnus was doing well, nothing was wrong, and then all of a sudden Gukesh just outplayed him and won the game. It was an amazing game. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. Will be the first link in the description below. Why not improve your day even further? But yeah, here we win because after queen to b1, even with best possible defense, like knight captures on d4, e captures and bishop to b3, you might say, okay, bishop to c3, let's just give up the exchange and, we move on. Nope, rook captures on c3. That's the issue. And after b captures, now you just play queen to d3 with check, nicely attacking the rook. So you have to play king to c1, but now queen to e3. And you cannot go in front of the rook, so you have to go back to d1. Now queen captures on c3. And you're just going to gobble up everything and trade at your convenience, and then you're just going to have a completely winning endgame. Or if something like, let's say, rook e1, you can even just play captures, and now queen captures on d4, and it doesn't matter what you play. If the king comes to e2, you win the queen, and if you try blocking with the queen, then just a nice rook b1 check, and it doesn't matter where the king goes, because rook to b2, again, will win the queen. So yeah, amazing game. I mean, still, they played the classical line of the Nimzo, and, you might be thinking of, sure, there are no surprises here. I mean, it's been analyzed so much, but you never know. I mean, you really never know. And, this pawn to c5, as like I said, h6 has been played, and, there's nothing fancy about this position. But, I mean, Gukesh even probably has so much leftover preparation from the World Chess Championship match that we don't know when he's actually employing something. So this could be, some leftovers, could be something that he prepared specifically for this game. Hard to say, probably for this game due to, his time usage, but still, I mean, amazing showing. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you haven't seen Gukesh's game against Magnus Carlsen, first link in the description below. I would like to thank James Anderson, Guillermo Ismael Garcia Borges, Phil Bauer, Benjamin Heuberger, and Nikola Nenad Stankovic for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.